And my name is Gina Cheverini Sanchez. I'm the Bureau Chief. Before we begin, I'd like to thank you all for participating in this virtual stakeholder meeting. And I want to extend my appreciation and patience in advance as we are moderating and co-moderating this meeting ourselves today. I appreciate Carolina Salmons, who will be our moderator throughout the meeting. So of course, anyone interested in participating for public comment must join through the WebEx link and either have an audio and mic ability through their computer, or they can use the phone option. The link to join the WebEx events along with information and instructions are posted on our homepage, cfb.ca.gov. There's a call out box at the top. When you enter the meeting, your line will be on mute. As the meeting progresses through the agenda, the lines will remain on mute until you request public comment. At that time, you can unmute yourself, and then please remember to remute yourself when you are not speaking to avoid background noise and any feedback. Carolina will open the Q&A box located down on the bottom right-hand side of your screen. And if you have a comment, just type the word comment into the chat box. Of course, I encourage the panelists, which are the committee members, if you could just use the raise hand feature, which is located right next to, should be located right next to your name when you hover over your name on the participant's screen. Okay, before we get started, I'd like to introduce the staff here from the Bureau and the department. With us today is Cheryl Jenkins, the Program's Operation Manager, and Carolina Salmons, who's the Budget, Legislative, and Regulatory Associate Analyst and our moderator today. From the department, Mr. Michael Knotes, our CFB Counsel, Mr. Taylor Schick, the Department of Consumer Affairs or Department's Fiscal Officer, and Ms. Rose Turner, the Department's Legislative Analyst. I want to thank you all for your attendance. The meeting is being webcast and will be posted on YouTube at a later event. Will be posted at YouTube to watch at a later time. And I would now like to take roll call. I ask that the committee members please introduce themselves and identify if you're an industry or public member. I will be going down the list that I pulled off the website as we go down. So, Ms. Grande.
Good morning. My name is Jolina Grande. I'm a licensee as an embalmer, funeral director, cemetery manager, and crematory manager. I am an industry member.
Thank you. Ms. McMillan.
Good morning. I am also an industry member.
Thank you. And Ms. Montague.
Good morning. My name is Nicole Montague. I'm an industry member, funeral director, owner of South Los Angeles Cremation Services.
Thank you very much. Ms. O'Farrell.
Good morning. My name is Chanel O'Farrell. I'm the manager of Hollywood Funeral Home and Hollywood Forever Crematory. I am an industry member.
And Reverend Jett.
Good morning. My name is Jacob Jett. I'm a hospice chaplain and I am a public member.
Hey, Ms. Mangini.
I'm muted.
There you go.
Oh,
perfect.
Good morning. I'm Maria Mangini. I'm a family nurse practitioner and I'm a public member.
Thank you. And I believe we're very happy that you're all here. We are expecting Ms. Okui. So when she gets on, we will have her introduce herself. I just want to say again, express my appreciation at each meeting, but it's truly appreciated for all the volunteer hours that the members put in to be a part of our advisory committee. So I just greatly appreciate you all. So moving on to the public comment for items not on the agenda. At this time, I would like to take public comment for items not on the agenda. Neither committee members nor Bureau staff may comment on what's said during the public comment period, as stated in detail on the agenda for this meeting. If there's anybody in the audience who would like to make public comment about issues that are not on the agenda, you may do so at this time. Carolina, please open the Q&A and anyone can type in the word comment into the chat box. Once I identify you, please unmute your line, of course, and then state your name and the name of your organization or association you represent, if applicable. Let's see. Yes, we do have a comment. Is it Christopher? If you can unmute your line. Do we need to unmute it first, Carolina? Oh, I think I hear
I don't
something.
have a comment, but if you were looking for me to introduce myself, I'm glad to be here. This is Chris Donhost, and I'm with Sierra Donor Services.
Perfect, thank you. And
Gina,
yes.
Chris Donhost wasn't who wanted to make a comment. It's Christopher Talk.
Oh, sorry, my mistake. Christopher Talk, Mr. Talk, if you could please unmute your line. He's having issues unmuting himself. Or if you're
Hi, can you hear me now? Hello.
There we go. Hello. Thank you.
Hi there. Yeah, sorry, there was issues with I couldn't unmute myself. It was locked.
Sorry about that.
How long do I have to make a public comment? Do I just have like a minute or two?
Typically, I'll state that it's a 5-minute limit, but this is a stakeholder engagement meeting. So typically it's like a discussion, but during the public comment for items on the agenda is 5 minutes.
Okay, great. I'll be shorter than that. I mean, it's 100% not on the agenda, but what I did want to comment on was the state of the regulation regarding alkaline hydrolysis. As I'm sure you're all aware, alkaline hydrolysis was legalized in California in 2017, with the legislation going into effect July 1st, 2020. We are now December 8th, 2021, and there has still been no regulation being drawn up. No regulation, rather, has been drawn up as regards to, the licensing around alkaline hydrolysis. Number one, the practitioners, crematory managers, we need a separate license. Number two, the establishment, no regulations have been drawn up with regards to what kind of establishment can run these machines. Number three, actual machine manufacturers like BioResponse Solutions, like Aquamation, like Resumation, none of them have even had clear instructions from the Bureau and from the DCA and from all of you guys with regards to getting their machines, regulated. I think it's a shambles that this has taken too long. It's embarrassing. Right now, I just opened a funeral establishment in California. I got my license to do it a week ago. I've been trying to open the establishment for an entire year, and I thought this would all be done. The amount of times I've spoken to the CFB and I've been told, oh, another month, another 2 months, whatever. Now we're in the holiday season, it's December. This isn't going to be done for another month. I spoke to the CFB, someone who was with you guys, a week ago for my inspection. They're giving me an estimate of another year. Do you guys know how embarrassing it is, given that this is legalized in 22 other states? California legalized this 4 years ago, and we still are not regulated to practice this in the state. I'm having to send cases up to Washington, which absolutely negates the environmental, impact of alkaline hydrolysis, because I'm flying bodies up to Washington to get them cremated. California is losing business. The DCA is losing their fee per cremation, because every single body is going to be sent up to Washington to get a cremation. I know people who are driving bodies to Nevada, to Colorado, to wherever to get these cremations, because the consumers want them. And because of your inability to actually regulate this, we cannot provide it to them. So my comment today is basically asking you guys to, tighten up your bootstraps and really get this done. It's embarrassing. It's a shambles. Everyone makes fun of California for having the worst bureaucracy in the entire United States. I'm from the UK. I never really saw that as being true. And now finally, I understand why it's such an embarrassment. So my question revolves alkaline hydrolysis. I know you guys can't respond, but that's what I have to say here.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for your comment. I know we can't respond, but I can direct you to our website and give you where the regulations have been approved. So if possible, if you could provide your information, an email, a phone number, and we can follow up with you and direct you where you need to go, I would be very gracious and appreciative of that. You can either put it in the comment box or you can email me directly at gina.sanchez@dca.ca. You can also get our email from our website. I know it's a little difficult to do over speaking like this. Is there a way I can put it in the chat? See a chat. Type. Oh. Here we go. Okay. I hope I got my email in there for you, Mr. Tugtug, and we can discuss this further. And thank you very much for your comment. Is there any other public comments? Okay. We can go ahead and close public comment then, and we'll move on to, okay, so we'll be moving on now to agenda item number 3 to begin our discussion. Today we are discussing the 2021 CFP proposal. The proposal is available from a link from our homepage, cfb.ca.gov. There's a call out box on the top that will take you to where the agenda and the fee proposal are located. I will open up briefly, just giving a brief history of our fund and our fund condition, and how over the years we have, what we have done over the years in regards to our fund. So in 2016, there was the cemetery fund and the funeral director and embalmers fund that were merged into one fund. At that time, it was directed that the Cemetery and Funeral Bureau perform a fee study to identify the appropriate fee levels with one fund. So in 2016, at an advisory committee meeting, a fee study that was presented by Dan Eds. I'm sorry, if we could all mute ourselves again. I'm getting a little bit of background on my end. I hope I'm clear for everybody else. In 2016, we performed a fee study. Mr. Eds from Capital Accounting Partners presented at an advisory committee discussing the outcome of that fee study, which was rolled up into the 2018 Sunset Review Report under Section 1 under Major Studies and Section 3, Item 10. In the Sunset Report, it's Attachment D, and that also expressed where our fund was and how soon we would become insolvent and need to raise fee levels. Unfortunately, nothing became of that fee study through our sunset. So when we revised our strategic plan, we did identify Goal 5 under administration to advance the needs of the fee study to ensure our solvency for the Bureau. So we then began another fee study with more, recent timelines and recent fund conditions and such that we're based on. And in June, I had made a comment in a public meeting that was completed and would be in an upcoming meeting. So October 28th was the first time the Bureau had proposed the fee study and the fee proposal on the 2 methodologies that were used to see where we initially landed, which was then, of course, requested this meeting to go into a little bit more detail and spend a little bit more time on the proposal itself. So I will go over, I'll kind of mirror what I did at the last meeting, just giving a background of our fund condition, of how we have identified how we have 2 sources of revenue here, and then how we pursued 2 different methodologies to land where we are. Then I'll open it up for discussion. Of course, individual comments is still at the 5-minute time frame, but people can comment as much and as often as they like. And being that my goal is to have this more of a discussion, I don't think those kind of strict guidelines are really needed here today. So just going off the fee proposal, the Bureau is supported by a single special fund, which is the Cemetery and Funeral Fund. That's what it's called now. And the attachment 1 of the fee proposal shows the CFB's current fund condition, which estimates that it will be insolvent by the end of fiscal year 2022-2023, which is next year. Currently, our fund is estimated to collect about $4 million a year that is pretty stagnant as in regards to the two areas we get fees. First is the licensing fees, of course, and the second is the $8.50 regulatory fee, which I'll go into a little bit in explaining what that is. It is anticipated to incur costs exceeding $6 million beginning in fiscal year 22-23. This represents obviously an annual structural deficit of about $2 million, which will deplete the fund, and which is shown in, of course, attachment 1. So to go into a little bit about, I think, our licensing fees and what we collect there of the $2 million, I think that's pretty self-explanatory. The $8.50 regulatory fee, I'll go into a little bit. This is a unique source of revenue paid by licensees for each interment, cremation, or hydrolysis performed. The fee brings in approximately $2 million in annual revenue, which is about 50% of our overall revenue. This fee, we've had it for a very, very long time prior to 1996. But in 1996, the fee was raised from 50 cents to $8.50. It was actually 50 cents and $1, and it was raised to $8.50. So there was a sunset date for this fee back in 2007. However, back then it constituted 65% of the Bureau's revenue. And instead of it being sunsetted, it came back in 2009 as a permanent fee of not to exceed $8.50. In addition to adjusting the licensing fees, as you'll see in attachment 3, I am also proposing, the Bureau is also proposing to increase this fee, as if it does not increase, it will raise licensing fees over 100% for some fees. So since it has been over 25 years since the last Bureau's fee increase, it was decided to pursue 2 separate methodologies when coming to this initial proposal, the fee proposal. Initially, we did a contract with Capital Accounting Partners again, Mr. N. This is reflected in attachment 3. It's several pages long, but towards the end of his report is where he shows where the fee levels should be and the recommendations that came out of that model. This is called a cost model methodology. Some of those fees were incredibly high and seemed to be a little cumbersome for licensees. So we decided to pursue a secondary methodology, which was based on the CPI. The CPI was calculated based on the year in which the fee became effective. So to sustain CFB till approximately 28-29, we used a 25-year CPI rate. Unless a license came in more recent than that, then we just calculated the CPI rate based on however many years that license has been in effect. In addition to the 2 methodologies identifying current fees, CFB is also proposing that they get a new fee authority for an annual financial report. Funeral establishments that collect pre-need from consumers and cemeteries that collect an endowment care both have to provide the Bureau with an annual report of that trust fund. So the funeral side has to pay a fee for that trust, for that report, and the cemetery side does not. So we are requesting for the cemetery side to establish a fee for cemeteries to submit their annual report. Those reports are reviewed by the auditors in the unit. And if you look at attachment 3 in the cost model methodology, it does show those reports should cost almost $5,000. Obviously, that is incredibly cumbersome and not a reasonable amount to have to submit annually to the Bureau. So we are proposing that fee be $500 for each, and the remaining costs spread amongst all license types. If this report remains unfunded, it will continue to contribute to CFB's insolvency. We found that the report was required since at least 1957. We didn't go back further than that and has never had a fee associated to it. So the outcome of this is that, CFE obviously is under collecting. It's not collecting sufficient fees to recover its costs fully. Personnel costs, enforcement costs, costs of doing business have increased over the past 25 years. Even with being very frugal and being very lean in what we spend, we still have outpaced our revenue after that significant amount of time. There were a few exceptions to the standard 25-year CPI rate that we proposed. Obviously, one is establishing a fee for the annual report for cemeteries. The other is to make the same for the same application. So we have an application to change corporate officer for funeral establishments, application to change corporate officer for cemeteries. We think it's in the best interest and only makes sense and is fair if we make those fees the same. So we have identified that also. We also recommend maintaining the examination and application fee for the cemetery manager license. We did not put in a proposal to raise that, as it is already the most expensive personal license in the Bureau, even with the recommended increases of all the other licenses. There's a few other exceptions that you'll notice. There's a difference between the capital accounting partners outcome and the CPI increase. We did not include the Federal Bureau of Investigation or Department of Justice fingerprinting fees. We did not include the fees that it takes to investigate applications, which is not really used here at the Bureau. So besides that, the recommendation is what it is that we will have to propose to the legislature in a bill to request a fee raise. I'm going to share my screen at this point because I want to open it up for discussion, and I want to be able to access the fee study if somebody wants to point to something specifically. So give me just a moment. Okay, so does everybody see the fee proposal on my screen, on their screen?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so at this time, we're going to open it up for, we'll say public comment, but it's public discussion. I can't, because I'm sharing my screen, let's see if I can open the participants. I think the Q&A should be open. And we can, oh good, Mr. Tactax. Be the first comment. Okay, so if we can please hear from Mr. Sheffer, President Walt Sheffer from CMAC, we'll start there. You can unmute your line. And if we have him muted, Carolina, if you could try and unmute, I don't know, everybody.
Sorry. Are you there?
We got it. Okay. Yes. Thank you for your patience.
Very good. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. Again, my name is Walt Sheffer. I'm the current president of CMAC and president of Cherokee Memorial Park and Funeral Home just down the road from you fine folks up in Sacramento. We appreciate the Bureau convening today's discussion to provide the opportunity for public and industry to provide its perspective regarding the 2021 fee proposal. CMAC supports a process of engagement with stakeholders to establish a solid foundation for increases, to enable the Bureau to accomplish its mission and to ensure that the negative impacts on consumers and the industry are avoided. It's important for us today to acknowledge that the fee proposal would increase revenues received by the Bureau from $4 million to $6 million per year. This is a significant and immediate increase of 50%. This is a new development. As recently as 2018, the Bureau's Sunset Review Report to the Legislature stated that there were no projected deficits in the cemetery and funeral fund. The Sunset Review Report included the November 2016 cemetery and funeral audit. That audit recommended that the Bureau plan for a 10-year forward projection of fees based on an annual increase of 3% and work with the legislature to cap at the 10-year projected maximum. That is far from a 50% increase. Timing of the current fee proposal is also problematic. The unprecedented pandemic has had a dramatic impact on families, cemeteries, and funeral homes served, as well as individuals working at our facilities. These tremendous challenges and obstacles have disrupted our profession and our operations, and they have not returned to normal. Our profits have certainly not increased by 50% in 1 year. Fee increases include a 100% increase to apply for a cemetery salesperson's license, a 90% increase to take the exam for a funeral director license, an 88% increase to take an exam for a cemetery broker license, and the 87% increase to apply to be an embalmer. These hefty licensing fees will create barriers for entry into the profession and hamper our ability to attract much needed individuals to work at our cemeteries and funeral homes to serve our communities. My funeral home manager sits on the American River College Advisory Board, and discussion amongst her colleagues is the struggle to find qualified staff. Let's not create barriers that would further limit the number of people entering the profession. I might propose that to offset the CFB deficit, we should consider increasing the regulatory fee beyond the proposed increase of $11.50 to a number that would cover all of the shortfall. By doing so, costs would be shared across the board with the consumer rather than being hidden away with price increases in our service fees. Going forward, I might suggest that increases to licensing fees be done so in a manner that would not hamper entry into the industry, that we might continue to serve the public well. Thank you so much for listening to me and with my concerns. And if you have any questions, feel free to have those now.
Okay. Am I muted? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, good. I was trying to find my unmute button. Thank you very much for the comment, first off. I absolutely understand that fee increases have these types of effects in many area. And by waiting this long and with costs all around going up as if we get into the fund condition, we'll see. I can see how, what we're proposing today is one option. We had many discussions in regards to how much to raise the regulatory fee versus the licensing and other fees that we have authority for. So this is, ultimately ultimately, of course, it's a legislative decision, but hearing this, we can definitely run more scenarios with that number raised and see how far up it has to go in order to cover the shortfall. So I think that is a very good point, and I appreciate how it was presented and how it's true. It would be shared amongst all consumers versus some establishments may being able to absorb it versus raising other establishment fees.
Exactly.
So I appreciate that. Yeah, that's a very good point. This today obviously is not what we're set on. This is what this meeting is for. So I appreciate that, and we can always run more numbers and circle back.
Thank you.
Do you have anything else, or just should I move on to the next speaker, or if any committee members have any questions? I can't quite look at the hand raised when I'm sharing a screen, so I'll have to default to you, Carolina. Do you see any committee members with their hands raised, or the next? Oh, I see I can't see somebody's hands raised. I see Ms. McMillan's hand raised.
I want to introduce Ms. Gina Cooley before we continue.
Oh, great. Thank you. Jean, can you unmute your mic? We'll do a quick mic check. Unmute her, maybe. Jean, we can't hear you.
Okay.
Now we can.
Yes. Somebody want to introduce me?
Yep, I just wanted to introduce you and do a mic check and welcome, because I know you came in after I was already going there. So I just wanted to say welcome.
Yes. You know, this funding, how are we funded for the monitoring the industry?
So our fund, we have two. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, besides the fees that are charged that were just presented by the speaker.
The only other form of revenue besides licensing fees would be the regulatory fee. It's an $8.50 fee that is paid by the licensees to the Bureau for every interment, cremation, or hydrolysis. It's reflected on the consumer contract as the DCA fee, is how it's reflected in industry, but it is a fee paid by licensees to the Bureau. So in addition to licensing fees, there's that $8.50 fee. Those are the only two sources of revenue. We have a very minor source of cost recovery for enforcement costs that are spent that licensees do reimburse depending on the situation. So that's really a very minute part that doesn't play into the overall of licensing and this $8.50.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Ms. McMillan.
Mine's just a clarification question. I want to make sure I understand what the speaker was recommending. And I think there's a lot of good points in there, but I just want to make sure I understand. The recommendation was lower the fees on the licenses for the potential licensees and increase that DCA fee. Is that correct?
That is correct. That was the first recommendation, yes.
Great. I just wanted to clarify to make sure that I pulled the right thing out. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And Ms. Grande.
Thank you very much. I want to clarify one of the comments that was made just to make sure that there is an understanding. I believe the recommendation from the Cemetery and Funeral Bureau is not to increase the examination fee for cemetery manager, as it is the most expensive examination fee. And I think it was originally said that it was the license fee, but I believe the license fee is disparately low in comparison to the high stakes examination fee. And I was wondering, for both the cemetery manager and the crematory manager, would there be any contemplation of inversing that allocation? Because the expense of the examination is almost cost prohibitive for many candidates to even apply. However, the cost of licensure is very minimal, and it is not in alignment with the other examination programs that the Cemetery and Funeral Bureau has. So I was just wondering why we would retain an $800 examination fee when there is such a small licensing fee attached.
That is a great question. I was wondering how that $800 fee got through many years ago when it did, because it was so much significantly higher than our others. So let's do, Caroline, if you can take note that we'll do a little research on that, and as we take these other options in keeping that in mind. Examining is prior to licensure, so I would assume you have even less money at that time in your life. So yeah, I can see the importance of that. Thank you for bringing that up. I think we might have a little bit of historical information on that. Yes, please speak to that. I think that was Cheryl. Was that Cheryl?
It was.
Yes.
Good morning, everyone. Cheryl Jenkins. So Jolena, to speak to your question, the cemetery manager and crematory manager, those licenses came in later. So that is a newer license until we added alkaline hydrolysis recently. And what was done is, because they both have an occupational analysis and an examination requirement, when these were put in place, it was taken into consideration the licensing pool, the number of applicants that we might have, and how that cost would be distributed. And so because we have a smaller number of licensees in both of those categories, the cost of the occupational analysis and the examination development, which we are required to do every 5 to 7 years, those costs have a smaller number of candidates to be spread across. And so that is what drove that cost when those were first coming in. Whereas with our funeral director and our embalmer, we have a large number of licensees and candidates. And so the costs have more people to be spread across. So that's really the factors that were driving those costs, and they still continue to be factors that drive the costs of those exams. And you know, we just recently finished another occupational analysis for the embalmer, and those, you know, are things that continue to be ongoing on a regular cycle.
Okay, thank you. Yes, that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense because that is true. Those occupational analysis and exam developments, which is mandated 5 to 7 years, is quite costly. So we do have 5 license types that require exams. So we are in a constant exam development process. Thank you for that clarification.
Gina, I also just wanted to point out that Jerry Desmond had said he wanted to make a comment and he hasn't spoken yet.
Yep, I was just getting to I don't know how to get to the Q&A. So, okay, we'll go to Mr. Jerry Desmond. Please unmute your line and you're up. If you can, Carolina, can you make sure we've unmuted?
Sanchez?
Yes, there we are. Hello.
There I am. Thank you. And thank you for the opportunity to comment as well. Jerry Desmond, and I'm the Executive Vice President of the Mortuary Association of California, CMAC, and wanted to follow up on our President Walt Sheffer's comments with a couple, first to ratify, I guess, or reinforce the thought of the regulatory fee being increased as an alternative to the license fees increases for the reasons Walt stated. And just to further clarify, I believe what we're offering for consideration is, you know, all the revenue enhancements, the $2 million, if that ends up being the, you know, the amount of money, that it all be accomplished through an increase in the regulatory fee, not just the initial exams or initial licenses. We think that for the reasons that we're stating, that it would be easily calculated, spread wider, and diminish the impact. Some businesses may decide that they're going to eat those costs as well, you know, in a competitive environment. And then to point out a couple of additional thoughts that we have here on the fee proposal. And one is, we talk about the impact on, you know, on the fees and that, you know, and the business operations of the cemetery authorities. You know, the impacts of a fee increase would be exacerbated by the, you know, the fee proposal we're talking here. When we consider that the mandatory increases to the deposits to endowment care funds will be significantly increased in January 1, 2023, as supported by CMAC and AB 651 by Assemblymember Gibson that Governor Newsom just signed into law. And so that is also a significant impact for a number of the properties to be taken into consideration as part of the context into which significant fee increases are being considered. And then a second reason to bring up the minimum deposits into ECFs, which we support, is that the final version of that ECF legislation, by design, it calls for the increases to be incremental over a multiple year period to purposely soften, you know, the impact, so consumers won't be dramatically impacted all at once. And I think it's a 3-year period, and so that might be a precedent for consideration of a future model. And then another issue that we believe the fee proposal brings to the fore is We believe when we look at, especially the rationale in the document that the chief has open, is that a significant amount of the revenue desire is because of for the annual reviews the Bureau conducts of endowment care fund reports. And the proposal states that the Bureau is requesting new fee authority specific to work performed by the audit unit staff in performing the review of the annual ECF reports submitted by licensed cemeteries. CMAQ certainly supports the Bureau continuing to perform these required reviews for the protection of consumers. We also believe that to accomplish this objective, the reviews must be conducted by individuals who have the necessary education, training, qualifications, and skills. The review process should also include a reasonable opportunity for properties to appeal and challenge findings that they believe to be inaccurate. This will provide for a quick resolution of disputes. And together, we believe these upgrades would better serve consumers to make sure that these audit reviews are excellent, which we all desire, and would save the Bureau and the industry from expending unnecessary time, resources, and money. While we recognize that license fees and the regulatory fee have not been increased for a number of years, this proposal and consideration in the legislature next year, we believe is an opportunity to structure a reasonable approach that will serve consumers, the Bureau, and the profession. We do know that there are precedents in terms of fines and citations in other licensed professions in the form of, sometimes it's called a disciplinary review committee, or DRC, that I believe works effectively for the same reasons that we're talking about here. So we look forward to further discussions as this issue and proposal move forward. And thank you again for having a stakeholder meeting and discussion publicly. We certainly appreciate this opportunity.
Making sure I'm not muted. Okay. Thank you, Jerry, very much for that comment. Another option I see that you brought up is raising it incrementally, very similar to how the ACF has done that. And I have seen that, I believe, in previous legislation in regards to fees, if not statutorily, then regulatorily. Yeah, that other word, through regulation. So that is definitely an idea. The current fund proposed condition, which brings us all the way down here to the very last page, obviously puts us out as solvent all the way through 2027, 28. So that does bring us, this 2 million does bring us solvency through that fiscal year. Then if you go down here, see fund balance, we'll be back into a 0.2 of a month in reserve. So we will be fully funded out that long. So incrementally, I can see how that is practical. That is a good suggestion. Considering we're talking about solvency for 6 or 7 years there. So I definitely like that idea. We can work with our budgets office and try and play around with that to see if that's something that's, as we look into raising the regulatory fee versus incrementally, or even raising the regulatory fee incrementally. All of these ideas are things that we'll have to take back to budgets and work on, but I definitely appreciate these ideas. In addition, in regards to the audits unit, there's been, I think, some very positive changes in the audits unit over the past 5 to 7 years. The associate management auditor position, we call it AMA, so we don't have to say that big long name. Those are the positions performing the reviews. There is a state classification that they have to have a required amount of education and experience doing audits and performing audits. This is a very highly turned over position. There is a great ladder in state service for auditors, and they tend to get promoted out very quickly. We have a few wonderful ones that have stayed with us a while, but there always is that learning curve. But I can provide hopefully some comfort's not the word I'm looking for, but provide that final audit reports do go through me before we issue any official findings. Our initial findings through the audit process, whether it's a desk review or a full audit, following the money from contract to trust. Either one of those, the initial findings that we have is typically to open up that discussion, to open up, this is what we're seeing. How can you respond? What else can you provide to make sure that this is within our statutes? And then it's not until the final findings where we order compliance. So we are working out the ebbs and flows of the audit unit. And so I do appreciate this comment, and I do appreciate, I just want to tell licensees that as you are going through an audit, whether it's a desk review or a full audit, Michelle Arthur is the audit manager, and her and I work together very well on these audits to ensure any of our findings are within the law. So we continue to work on that unit, and we have actually been audited ourselves, and are doing very well in establishing our working papers and our processes, but they can always be refined just like in any other unit. So I appreciate that comment and that highlight, and we'll continue to work with you and with other licensees on bringing that unit to an even higher level than it is now. So I appreciate that, Jerry. Is there anything else you'd like to add? Okay, I'm going to say that's a no from Jerry then.
I am good. Thank you, Chief Sanchez.
I just want to make sure if we had any more back and forth you wanted. Okay, so I'm moving on.
Gina, this is the moderator. I want to make sure Mr. Walt Schaefer has made his comment before we continue to the next commenter.
Oh, before we continue to Mr. Nalder. Okay, Mr. Schaefer, did you have any additional comment you would like to add? You're muted. Okay, then I'll move on to Mr. Fred Nalder. And Mr. Sheffer, if you would like to make an additional comment, please just add a little something in the box and we'll circle back around, absolutely. Mr. Nalder, please. We'll make sure your line's unmuted.
Good morning.
Yes, good morning.
I see so many friendly names on the screen today. It's nice to be here and appreciate the invitation to join this today.
Yes,
for those of you who don't know me, I'm Fred Nalder. I'm the current president of the California Funeral Directors Association, and I'd like the others would like to share my appreciation for this forum and the opportunity to speak today. I'm sure it's no surprise that CFDA, as well as many others, have been shocked by the size and suddenness of this proposal. We're concerned about the financial implication it has not only to our 300 funeral home members, but also to the entire state's death care profession. These proposals hit at the core of our industry and the professionals who make it function. As Jolena mentioned, some of the licensing the fees make it difficult for people to enter, as well as representatives from CMAQ have stated. As previous audits and reviews in 2016 and 2018 informed us, the Bureau seemed stable and financial increases were not required. I'm at a lack of understanding and extremely concerned of what has changed so drastically in the last 5 years, or what has moved the Bureau from financial stability to near insolvency. I find that concerning. CFDA has always maintained a good relationship with the Bureau and have historically worked closely together to discuss ideas, concerns, and solutions. And we strongly desire that same relationship on this issue. CFDA also remains closely aligned with our sister association, CMAQ, and we've heard some of their comments today. And we share many of the similar thoughts and concerns about the current situation, as well as the proposed solutions. We do acknowledge that there's been a moratorium on license and renewal fees for the last 25 years. And we'd be open to discussion about a plan or a program to address long-term financial goals or objectives with the Bureau. would be much more open to an idea proposed in the 2016 report, which outlines a 3% increase every 10 years, but are a little confused as to how that has instead jumped to an immediate 50% increase just 5 years later. I want to assure you that we stand ready to work with the Bureau to prevent another situation such as this one and creating something more mutually palatable for all of us. We would therefore respectfully request an in-person meeting to review operating costs with alternative solutions. In reviewing the 2021 fee study prepared by Capital Accounting Partners, I'm able to see the need for such an extreme and immediate increase on license fees and renewals. I fear that these fees will punish the providers rather than help protect the consumer. As many of our members are struggling to recover from the cost of pandemic operations, inflation, and staffing shortages, this drastic proposal seems a little ill-timed. Today's forum, while we're grateful to have this, doesn't provide enough time to address all of our concerns in detail, nor is there enough information currently available for us to provide alternative solutions that work in the greater good for the consumer, the Bureau, and our profession. Again, we would respectfully request an opportunity to meet in person and further discuss and dialogue about these issues and proposed solutions. Again, I want to thank you for the invitation to join today and appreciate the comments and feedback. So thank you very much, Gina.
Yes, thank you very much for your comment, Mr. Nalder. I appreciate you being here and bringing up your issues and concerns. They're heard and absolutely understood. I can say that there are a few things that have come up as to why we need this increase. I think if I can go up to this fund condition. Sorry, your screen is all over the place. But this is actually the document here that shows this is our balance of our fund, beginning balance. That's what these lines here are. It then goes into our revenues and other adjustments, and down here into our expenditures. So our expenditures, they rise each and every year. Staff compensation, state pro rata, enforcement costs, bringing in a new IT system. There's the general salary increase that's highlighted in red at 4.55%. So these types of things over 20 years is what brings it, tighter and tighter and tighter.
Sure.
There's legislation and things that come in where we have to implement new IT costs and new license types. All of these, every time legislation goes through, and one just went through last year for temporary licenses, we then have to build out a new IT system in order to issue those temporary licenses. And all of these things, of course, have to be paid for. So that's just a very high level of the cost, but that really is the biggest costs, of course, are personnel at state pro rata and state operations, and then and the things I just mentioned. So it's that those costs are supposed to bring us here today with this, but of course this is a proposal that we're having this conversation to come up with other options or other ways to compensate for the cost of doing business. So I do appreciate, I'll have to circle back with you on an in-person meeting. We haven't had any in-person meetings just yet. So I'll definitely be circling back with you on that after the meeting, Mr. Nalder. I appreciate your request.
Great, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. If we want to go into a little bit more on the fund condition, we can do that if anybody would like. I don't think we have any other.
This is the moderator. We have Matthew Peralta with his hand raised.
Thank you. Mr. Peralta, I'm sorry I missed your hand. You are muted. Make sure we're not muting him, please.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Hi, good morning, Gina. My name is Matt Peralta. I'm the executive director of the California Funeral Directors Association. We represent over 300 funeral homes across California. Like Fred just said, we appreciate the Bureau conducting this stakeholder meeting and the opportunity to express our organization's concerns with the proposed fee increases. I won't reiterate, I guess, what Fred just commented on, but he did a really thorough job at outlining everything that we're concerned about. We appreciate your earlier response and willingness to do projections based on smaller incremental increases and or increases to the regulatory fee. I just want to reiterate what Fred said, that CFDA would appreciate the opportunity for further one-on-one discussions with you and your team at the Bureau as you work through that. And we hope that we can work collaboratively with you towards a solution that doesn't cause additional unnecessary burdens for our members or those looking to enter the profession. So just wanted to reinforce what Fred just said and appreciate the opportunity to speak today. And we look forward to many more conversations.
Thank you very much for your comment on that. I agree. I don't want to repeat myself either, but yes, I agree that I appreciate these comments and the alternate ideas. Ultimately, this is a proposal that gets put forth to the legislature, who has the ultimate deciding factor. But the more that we can discuss and work out any of these hiccups, concerns, issues, the better proposal that we'll have before the ledge. So I do appreciate, everyone's comments and their ideas. What it does is that brings more information of what the needs are back to the Bureau, which then we can start working and see if any of these options are feasible and what it would look like as a presentation to the ledge next session. So we do have still some time here to go around and continue these conversations. So I definitely appreciate that. I see Jerry made a comment that CMAC would certainly welcome and participate in another stakeholder discussion. Thank you. Thank you, Jerry. I appreciate that too. And whatever I can bring to the table, I understand this is state service. I can look at these documents and I can read them, like that. But I want to be able to make sure that the information is being translated out to the public clearly. So if and when we get these new proposals put together or new fund conditions being worked out through budgets, please, in this forum or in an email separately, please just let me know what I can really speak to more clearly show where the money is going or where the costs are coming from. I can do a much more detailed expenditure report to show our expenses. That's this little section here I'm outlining. This is a very high level, obviously. So I can do a much more detailed there if we think that would be helpful into educating and providing a little bit more understanding as to where state money is spent and where it goes, and even where it comes in. We have a much bigger, more detailed revenue chart also. So we can do those both. It would be just what the needs are is all I'll need to know. So is there any more hands up? Any committee members have anything to add or any other? Looks like this will be continued, so that's good. But is there any other comments now today? Anywhere? I'm going to keep talking until I see something. Oh, I'm really not. Nobody's got anything. Okay, well, I don't want to close it out too early just in case somebody thinks of something else to add. But I think that we have a good place to start here at the Bureau. We work real closely with the Budgets Office. They're amazing. and we will continue this. I just wanted to say thank you to the commenters. Thank you to my committee members, of course, who donate their time and their ideas and their thoughts to us here today, and advise the Bureau very well. So if there's nothing else, I will adjourn this meeting. Thank you very much, everyone. I appreciate the time.